So, how did you get into broadcasting?
Okay, how do I get into broadcasting? I started going through journalism training. I studied my degree, and then I went on to the NCTJ journalism course, 1-year course, which basically taught me the essence of telling a story and how to get a story. I started in newspapers, and back in the days when I was starting my career, all those years ago, you did go through a natural path of newspapers, then television or radio. So after 18 months on local newspapers in London, I worked on the East London Advertiser in Bethnal Green. I then moved into television and started in factual programme making and moved towards sport programme making. The reason why I chose sport and why I ended up there is that it's an inherent drama in sport. You don't have to manufacture the drama. You win or you lose. There's striving for success or failure. So there's inherent drama in the stories of the sportsmen. So I like making sport documentaries, and yeah, that's how I got into broadcasting.
So what sort of qualifications or education did you need to get into that role?
Well, they vary. Some students go into media at an earlier age, some go in at a more advanced age. My personal journey was I studied a degree, and then I did a postgraduate NCTJ course, which is taught here at Harlow College, and then it's newspapers. So it was degree, NCTJ, journalism qualification, and then into newspapers and eventually television. And the NCTJ stands for National Council for the Training of Journalists. And what that is effectively the gold standard of training for journalism. So you learn law, shorthand, how to write a story, how to get a story. And those skills are all very, very useful in the industry.
Okay, right. So what sort of jobs and roles did you have to undertake being in sports broadcasting?
Okay, I'd say my field within sport broadcasting was factual programmes. So I worked on feature shows, I turned around match edits for rugby programmes and football programmes. But what I enjoyed most was working on documentaries, where I could get inside stories a bit more. So I made a documentary about Mike Tyson. The night Tyson fought Lewis, there was a documentary for Channel 5, and I made that film, which was essentially the story of Mike Tyson, which was one of those classic stories I mentioned to you, inherent drama. His story, his life story is full of drama. He's the youngest fighter to win the World Championship of the world. He's also the youngest fighter to lose the World Championship of the world. And the reasons why he lost it are multi-layered, lots of elements to it. So there's that. I also made a documentary about the England rugby team before the 2007 World Cup, where I lived inside the camp for 6 months with a cameraman, and we told the story of how the England rugby team were preparing for the World Cup in 2007. So they're the sort of things I ended up doing, sort of storytelling within sport.
So what would you describe as the highlight of your career?
Gosh, what a question. That's a very difficult question to answer. It depends on what you would probably call a highlight. I mean, a job of personal satisfaction, or a job where you met people and got access to a world you always wanted. I think I'd probably have many different highlights. I think it's impossible to just choose one. Okay. I, luckily enough, worked on a documentary about Brian Clough, which won an award, the ex-football manager. That was a professional highlight. But I suppose I always had highlights of just working with, in an industry that's great, on a kind of regular basis, meeting people. You're in a kind of very privileged world in that industry. It's not many industries where you get a chance to travel the world and meet people that you've always wanted to meet. And I suppose those highlights are quite frequent, thankfully. But if I'm a professional highlight, maybe that. But I think I have many, hopefully, that I really enjoy and cherish.
So when did you realise that sports broadcasting was what you wanted to do? What made you realise it?
I wanted to work in journalism, and I ended up wanting to work in sport because of the storytelling, inherent drama. So, I don't know, quite mid-20s maybe? Mid-20s.
So what made you eventually leave the sports broadcasting?
What made me eventually made me leave? I made a documentary about Dino Zoff about 18 months ago, which was great, and Fiorentina Football Club. I was doing some film in Italy, which was great. And then the opportunity came to teach students I suppose, what I've learned really, and pass on knowledge, if you like. So that decision was quite easy one to make. I quite like doing that. So I decided to perhaps pass on some knowledge and help students maybe for the interesting part that I've had, and I've kind of quite enjoyed it.
Oh, okay. Send them a question.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.